The goal of a three-point shot in basketball is to get the basketball to the hoop and make it. I will discuss the necessary movements that produce an ideal shooting pattern biomechanically. While receiving the ball from his teammate, the best position for the athlete to be in is in a staggered stance. This allows for the center of gravity to be centered as the athlete is transitioning into a three-point shot. The athlete will lower themselves towards the ground through hip, knee, and ankle flexion. The hips will flex, the knees will flex, and the ankle will dorsiflex as well. In addition, the upper extremity will begin to transition into flexion in order to push that basketball towards the hoop. Muscles involved during this activity is a combination of upper and lower extremity. It is vital for the body to perform the activity as a whole in order to maximize power output. Power can be altered if the athlete does not utilize their legs and only their arms and vice versa. Muscle contraction is important in this activity and it is vital for the athlete to produce a summation of forces via contraction of upper and lower extremity. The center of gravity sits at the midline. The athlete attempting a three-point shot alters his center of gravity as the transition is made to the initial takeoff. As the athlete prepares to shoot the basketball, the axis of rotation sits inside the body. The shoulder and the elbow joints are two examples of the axis of rotation, and the forearm and the humerus identify the plane of movement. The movement of the forearm and hand as the athlete performs the shot is in a sagittal plane around the transverse axis. Two factors that influence or comprise angular kinematics is position and displacement. Identifying the position and displacement allows for accuracy and proper identification of what plane and axis the movement is occurring in. Friction occurs as the athlete goes into the initial takeoff. The vertical jump is essential as it shows how explosive the athlete really is. By combining movement with his legs and arms, the work done on the basketball is larger and allows for kinetic energy to become large as well. As you can see, the lower extremity moves into extension, the hips extend, the knees are in full extension, and the ankles are in full extension as well. As you look at the upper extremity, his shoulders are fully flexed, and elbows are fully extended, and his wrists and fingers are moved into flexion to push that ball forward. Force is positive because the basketball is displaced in the direction of the force. Negative work can occur if an opponent blocks a three-point shot because force is applied by the opponent opposite in the direction of the displacement. Horizontal velocity of projectile is constant and presents in a straight line. This identifies that the velocity remains constant once the ball is released. In addition, vertical projectile is present, therefore potential energy is also applied. Kinetic energy can be applied if the force is larger and applied over a long distance. A basketball athlete can generate greater force if he uses both his lower and upper extremities simultaneously, rather than just his arms. Drag forces resist the translational movement of the basketball as the ball is in flight towards the hoop. As the ball is in the air, drag forces combine with gravity and cause the ball to fall back down and resist the ball from moving beyond the hoop. In addition, the Magnus effect is a lift force that is caused from the spin of the ball because of the pressure differences. As the athlete performs the shot, the backspin lowers the flow of the air underneath the ball as well as increase the flow of air above the ball. The Magnus effect decreases the friction as that is involved with getting the basketball to the hoop. Torque is the turning effect produced by a force. Torque is created to initiate the spin of the basketball. The force is produced through the center of the basketball and creates a linear motion towards the basketball hoop. In addition, torque is produced internally by the muscles to rotate around a joint. There are many muscles contracting simultaneously to produce a three-point shot, and as the muscles contract, it creates a pulling force on the extremities. Force is a factor that can negatively or positively affect torque. Therefore, if an athlete increases the force placed on the basketball, the more torque is produced, which produces a greater spin on the basketball. In order to limit injury after landing, it is important for the athlete to absorb energy by flexing his knees, ankles, and hips during the landing. Friction can occur to reduce injury risk, to prevent sliding and falling on the court. The friction between basketball shoes and the court allow for athletes to land safely after completing the shot. The athlete produces a spin on the ball as it is shot towards the hoop. Angular kinetics allows us to interpret whether the basketball changes angular velocity and determine where the axis of rotation changes direction. The angular velocity does not change and the axis of rotation does not change direction because no external torque is acting on the basketball as it is in the air. The force of gravity acts through the center of the basketball, and once the ball is released from the athlete's hand, a linear projectile is produced.